Yeah, hey, uh, come on. I'm hitting new levels of come on the desert and not on the iron, the rock heavy metal. What? Yeah. Hitting new levels of come on the desert and not on the iron, the rock heavy metal. Whoa, hey, yeah, yeah. Hitting new levels of come on the desert and not on the iron, the rock heavy metal. Whoa, hey, yeah, yeah, hey. Hitting new levels of come on the bezel, the nine on the iron, the rock heavy metal, the fire and the power. I grind by the hour. We working on building the whole them in power. The signs in the stars, mine is on Mars. Nigga like Tesla, lightning bars. Ain't down broke, man, I'ma go hard. Need a big house, big watch, big car. Need a big house, big watch, big car. Need a big bang, man, need to go yard. Living high fashion in the last days. I don't give a damn, man, let him eat cake. I don't give a damn what a hater gon' say. Hard to see an ass who got a fool getting paid. Getting revenue every time, make a wave. Red up like the water, cause we making neat waves. Red up like the water with a gang like slaughter. Millie on my mind live, I be round high. Laughing to the bank while I'm stacking all these dollars. Getting real high while I'm pulling that's la la. Putting numbers on the board like it was a aha. Praying to the pancake like it was a aha. Got the studio doing numbers like a trap house. In the backwoods, bending corners with a strap out. Hitting new levels, will come on the bezel. The nine on the iron, the rock heavy metal, the fire and the power. Come by the hour, we working on building a whole damn empire. The signs and the stars, mine is on Mars. Nigga like Tesla, lightning bars. Ain't down broke, man, I'ma go hard. Need a big house, big watch, big car.
All right. What's up? What's up? What's up? Back at it again. You know how it is. So today, what I've learned from reading this book is the Anunnaki Chronicles is one of the books from Zecharia Sitchin. It's not part of the Earth Chronicles. It's the Anunnaki Chronicles, but it's not part of his 7-part series book. There's 2 more books that I'll be going over, one over tomorrow and the next one on Friday, and finish them out. But this is where most of the people get their information when they talk about Planet Nibiru and them needing gold, and they came from a different planet to mine our gold and this, that, and the third. Now there is some truth to the Anunnaki that Zecharia Sitchin does talk about, like them being creators of a type of a human and so on and so forth. But what he did is he took a lot of information, and instead of just sitting there and sharing what the facts are, he included his own narrative and ideas and so on and so forth. And I can tell you right now, there is no cuneiform tablet out there that says the Anunnaki came from a planet Nibiru that orbit our sun every 3,600 years to mine gold for their planet. This book right here, as you can see, I got it. Just like every book that I own, I have a lot of tabs on it, but this one is not filled with a lot of tabs. And the reason why is because a lot of it is just repeated stuff. I know it says right here includes never before published writings, which it does, but it also includes stuff that he has said over and over and over and over again. I brought that up. I actually started streaming on Facebook. So if you're watching from Facebook or going to be watching Facebook, I have a whole series on my YouTube channel called What I've Learned from Reading This Book or These Books. And it's basically me picking any book in my library. I have a list on my website, rebirthoftheword.com, of all the books that I've read at least 3 times. I know a lot of people have said, oh, I've read thousands and thousands and thousands of books, but I actually read my books more than once. Some of them I've read at least 5 times. Some of them I've read more. Some of them is at bare minimum, I have to read every book that I've owned at least 3 times. That's just my go-to number. I don't know why I do that. I've always had this thing with the number 3, so that's why I do that in 3s. But I can tell you that I don't also just read the books. I comprehend it. I understand what they're trying to say. And I do that, and I go about it by doing my due diligence and researching what that individual said. And that's how I found out Zecharia Sitchin actually made up a lot of stuff. I actually can say that for people who follow Billy Carson also follows a lot with Zecharia Sitchin says. And I will be actually going over his books soon too. Breaking down how he exaggerates and how he's very into himself about things. I just finished up one of his books, and it was, I can tell you, I never laughed so much and so hard reading a book in my life when I read Billy Carson's last book. And like I said, I'll be going over it. I'll be showing you how he does it for money. A lot of these individuals do this for money. I know some of the best people out there, it's only a handful of them who do this, who don't get paid in any way, don't get the support that they deserve or the support that they should get from just, doing the basic stuff. I know the saying goes, it takes money to make money, but once you get money involved with, knowledge and education and stuff like that, you kind of lose its essence and its feeling for it. This book, like I said, every book that I go over, I highly recommend reading. The reason why I read people's books, even if I don't agree with them, is because how can I disagree with somebody if I don't know what they're saying? I know what other people tell me what they've said, but I have to read the context for myself. A lot of people like to quote books and they leave out the whole context of it. I give you a good example. The Epic of Gilgamesh, by, I believe it's Andrew George, if I'm not mistaken. He's one of the guys that wrote a book about the translations of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And when you open up the book, at least the new translation version, because he updated the book, in the introduction itself, it literally talks about it being fiction. Okay, now a lot of people would say, well, the Epic of Gilgamesh is based on true events and this, that, and the third, and blah, 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 blah. But they obviously haven't read the actual translations from the people who have translated it, because they tell you to be careful what you're about to digest when you read it. And that's interesting to me, because like I said, what I do go in these tabs, and they are paragraphs or sentences that somebody said, but I would go into it more in depth. Like, I know that there's more information out there, and I can tell you from basic information that I've researched in the past. I will always say, don't believe what I say. This is the whole reason why I do this series. What I've learned from reading this book is because I want you to take what I'm saying in these videos and these, audios and all this stuff. I want you to take this and say, okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy the book and read it for myself. That's if you want the true information. And if you already have the book, you can follow along with me on it. I don't ever claim to be the smartest person or know the facts or this, that, and the third. I just know what the translations say from the same people that said they read the text from the same individual. So I give and take. If somebody says, hey, Zecharia said this in the book, the Anunnaki Chronicles, with respect, I'm going to say, where does it say that? And a lot of times people say, well, I didn't read the book, somebody just told me. Well, you should never do that. Read the book before you go repeat what somebody else said. You know what I'm saying? And then have it backed up in a way. I know that 20 people can pick up this book, including myself, and we can all find things in this book that is interest to us. We're not going to find the same things in interest, and it's going to be based off of our prior knowledge on other things. But in reality, I know a lot of people don't mark their books like I do. I know a lot of people either highlight or underline their books. Well, I take it a step further. Like I said, I literally take my books and I put tabs on them. And this is probably one of the books that I don't have that many tabs on, which, like I said, is because of the simple fact that he's already talked about a lot of this other stuff in his other books and stuff like that. So I'm not here to sit here and down people like Billy Carson or Zecharia Sitchin. I just don't understand why they have to make up stuff to make it to a point where they think they're right. I've actually had a one-on-one with Billy Carson at Cosmic Summit, and that dude is very disrespectful when it comes to other people's knowledge. Even though he tries to sit here and says he creates leaders and this, that, and third, that dude's disrespectful, because anytime somebody tells you to go read the text without even knowing who you are, that's the most disrespectful thing. I mean, you have to be able to say, hey, look, man, I understand you probably know it this way or understand it this way, but this is what I interpret it. And that's fair enough. If you interpret and comprehend something different, that's absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you think that you're right by your interpretations. So that's one of the reasons why I'm slowly trying to learn the cuneiform script for myself, so I can get a better idea of what's being said. And I'm telling you, it's a long journey. This is not something that you can do in a lifetime. At least I won't have a lifetime to do and learn it to the point where I can be fluid with it and stuff like that. And the only reason why is because I have so much going on and I want to do so much. I read every day. My hours for reading is at least like 6 to 8 hours a day. I at least read at least 6 to 8 hours a day. And research another couple of hours after that. One of my favorite historians and authors is Godfrey Higgins. He wrote books in 1830s Anacalypse Volume 1 and 2, and he also has a book called Celtic Druids, and he explains how many hours he puts into this stuff. Now, it was easy for him to put 10 hours into this stuff back in the day because they didn't have TV. He wasn't a family man like that. They didn't have, computers and the technology we had, so their entertainment was one or two things: either being out there in the open with other people or reading books and gaining knowledge. So like I said, I highly recommend everybody to get every book that I personally shared on my YouTube channel. I don't want to take away from somebody's ability to go read the book for themselves. I've been getting DMs from people from all over saying, "Hey, man, I really like your series. I really like how you break it down. I like how you talk about the facts and how you provide the facts while I'm actually discussing the book itself." I pull up sources online. Anybody that wants to know about the Anunnaki, they can go to the Electronic Text Corpus of Sumerian Literature, ETCSL, online. You can see the actual cuneiform tablets for yourself on the Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative. And there's a lot of other sources like the British Museum and so on and so forth that has sources for you to look at this stuff. So none of this stuff is hidden, and all this stuff is free available. The Electronic Text Corpus of Sumerian Literature is actually available to everybody online right now. If you go to Google, type in ETCSL, you'll find Electronic Text Corpus of Sumerian Literature, and it has everything on there that you want to know that's translated from the cuneiform script. Now, you have to know about what to look for. Like, you can't type in Anunnaki in a search bar and think that you're going to get it, because that's not what the Sumerians called them. The Sumerians called them the Anunna. The Akkadians called them the Anunnaki. So you have to go to a different site to go get the Akkadian side and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that comes into this information to understand what is the actual facts. Now, even though this comes translated from other people, that doesn't mean that this is the actual facts of, that the person that translated it has it all right. That doesn't mean that. All it does is saying that I know for a fact that when Billy Carson, Zecharia Sitchin, Giorgio Tsoukalos, or any of these individuals that talk about the Anunnaki, they only get it but from so many sources. And you have to go to the originators of it, especially if you can't read it for yourself. I know people have heard Billy Carson. I've heard him say, I can translate the text in this, that, and the third. If he can do it, then do it on the StreamYard to show everybody, or your live stream. Hell, you got a TV show where you can teach people how to read it. Like, this is the thing. If I had half the stuff that he had, like a TV show and the support that he had and stuff like that, I would definitely be getting people. I would definitely be getting the books and showing the people, hey, this is how you read Sumerian. This is what the pictographic script. This is this, that, and the third. But I can tell you from reading his last book, you have to pay him to get that type of information, and he literally says this in his book. And knowledge should be for free. You shouldn't have no paywall. People should be able to support you just because you write in the first place. And if you can get people to, support you monetarily or by money or anything like that, it's fine, but lying to people and, having people who are like me, who are trying to get down to the facts and understand the truth and what the basic knowledge is a slap in the face to us, because we're not out here to make the money. I can tell you right now, I created my website, rebirthoftheword.com, 5 years ago, and I've always said that I would not make it monetarily. I would not sit here and I would not monetize my website at all, because I hate when I go to a website and I see a whole bunch of ads popping up and all this other stuff, and I got to click X to get out of it. I don't want none of that. I want to go straight to the website, read what I need to read, gain the information I need to gain, and that's it. I don't want to sit here and play, tic-tac-toe trying to, click on stuff and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and start with this book, the Anunnaki Chronicles. Like I said, I got it right here. And this is the book that I actually talk about a lot when I say that Zecharia Sitchin says, he has three different definitions or ways of saying who the Nephilim / the Anunnaki are. At least in this book, I've actually talked about it in other book in the other series of my books, about him talking about, what he says when he gives you the description of what the Anunnaki mean. I can tell you right now, Anunnaki means basically princely offspring. It doesn't mean anything like those who came from heaven to earth or anything like that. It literally just means princely offspring and anything that's close into that idea of princely offspring. It's very interesting that a lot of people believe those who came from heaven to earth, because that's why they believe that they came from some planet, but it doesn't mean that at all. Academically, no, it doesn't mean that. And anybody that wants to prove that it means those who came from, from heaven to earth, all they gotta do is just get on these live streams, the television shows, or whatever they have, and show you, hey, this is the cuneiform tablet identifier that says this, and this is how it reads, and this is exactly how you can do your transliterations from that. And I already showed about transliterations and all that other stuff on the other episode. So if you're watching me for the first time on Facebook, just know that I do have a YouTube channel that I go over all his books, and not just his books, but every book that I own personally. So this is here on page 8. This is interesting. It's in page 8 of his book, Introducing the 12th Planet. That's what it's called. I found this very interesting because this is basically, the second page basically into the Earth Chronicles, page 8. And this is what he says, and this is where he gets the first idea of what he means. And I'm going to show you guys what certain words mean, because I just can't believe that he did some of the stuff that he did. So this is what he says, page 8. He says, the Old Testament has filled my life from childhood, just like anybody, right? When the seed for this book was planted nearly 50 years ago, I was totally unaware that's what he says, of the then raging evolution versus Bible debates. But as a young schoolboy studying Genesis in its original Hebrew, I created a confrontation of my own. We were reading one day in chapter 6 that when God resolved to destroy mankind by the great flood, the sons of the deities who married the daughters of men were upon the earth. The Hebrew original named them Nephilim. The teacher explained it meant giants. But I objected. Didn't it mean literally those who were cast down, who had descended to earth? I was reprimanded and told to accept the traditional interpretation. Now, if you look up, matter of fact, let me just go ahead and bring this up now, because this is where the interesting parts come from, because this is where you have to actually do your due diligence and know what certain words mean. So if you look up Nephilim, and this is what I like to do, Nephilim. I'm gonna bring it up right here. Let me close out this real quick. Hold on, Strong's Concordance, blah blah blah. All right. So I talk about this a lot. I talk about the Strong's Concordance, and that's basically the translations from Hebrew or Aramaic to the Septuagint, right? And see, this is what I mean by right here. If you look right here, this is what I mean about the advertisements. I don't want to see any of that when I do that. But if you go to Nephilim, right, and you type in Nephilim in the Strong's Concordance, I like to use BibleHub.com, and there's a couple of other websites that you can use. You see right here, it says 5303, because that's the Strong's Concordance number, Nephilim. And you can see right here, it says giant, right? And then a feller, i.e. a bully or a tyrant, a giant, okay? Giant's name of two peoples, one before the flood and one after the flood. Then it gives you, it gives you some of the masculine plural giants and all this stuff. It gives you more information. But the word origin, fall. Now, I've read a lot of books from Jeff Benner. I actually had a podcast discussion with him. He sent me a lot of his books for free, and I'm very grateful for that. But if you look right here, it says fall. Jeff Benner in his book says fallen. It doesn't mean anything, those who were cast or anything like that. Now, I don't know why he added so much stuff. It says a feller, a bully, or a tyrant. It says giant right here in his book. He says, let's go back there. The teacher explained it meant giants, but I objected. Didn't it mean literally those who were cast down, who had descended to earth? Now, just remember that that's one version of what Nephilim or Anunnaki means, according to Zecharia Sitchin. You won't see none of that here. Now, anybody who translates or says they read the the ancient Hebrew text and so on and so forth, they're going to use the Strong Concordance. That's just what they're going to use. You can't go past that. Okay. It says the Nephilim were on the earth, says they were giants in the earth, the Nephilim were on earth. And it tells you the different uh, versions of it. A lot of people who say that Anak was the Anunnaki. That's why, because, of Anak are part of the Nephilim, and we became, and we were in our own sight. That's why some people say that Anunnaki and Anak were the same, because that's where the giants. Now, the reason why a lot of people say that the Anunnaki were giants, because in some depictions, they definitely show that the kings were, or whoever they were much bigger than the people that weren't, related to them. And that's fine and all that, you know what I'm saying? But the fact is that we really don't know exactly what was said, or what they meant by giants. I mean, they were probably bigger and better people, stronger people. Who knows? Nobody knows that. I also know that there are pygmy people, and I know there are taller individuals in this world, and I've talked about that before. And just to let you know, this is not going to be a long one, only because of the simple fact that there's not that many slides on or tabs on here, but I'll keep it going. So this is the next tab. It says it has taken 30 years of research of going back to the ancient sources, okay, of accepting them literally to recreate in my own mind a continuous and plausible scenario of prehistoric events. Let me say this again. This is why I say it's important to understand that people create their own narratives. I can say right now personally, his niece Janet Sitchin should have never published this book and said this stuff, because of the fact that it contradicts and it really goes against everything that he says. This actually, in my eyes, if you really want to know the facts, this book takes away any of what Zecharia Sitchin said. It did more harm than good for him. And that's just coming from a perspective of somebody who's trying to research their stuff. But let me say this again. It says, it has taken 30 years of research of going back to the ancient sources of accepting them literally to recreate in my own mind a continuous and plausible scenario of prehistoric events. The 12th planet therefore seeks to provide the reader with a narrative giving answers to the specific questions of when, how, why, and where from. The evidence I adduce consists primarily of the ancient texts and pictures themselves. Like I've said plenty of times, everybody's going to look at a picture differently. If you go to a museum and you see pictures on the wall and somebody tells you this, this is what the pictures mean and this, that, and third, you're already going to have this idea in your mind. That's what you want to see. It's not going to be your own ideas. Yeah, you're looking for what that person has said, and that can kind of take away from the facts, and it does take away from the facts. And I can tell you, he used the word narrative. Like I said, we got to stop letting people create their own narratives to say what's fact and what's fiction. Here's another tab. It says the first significant excavation of Sumerian site was begun in 1877 by French archaeologists, and the finds from this single site were so extensive that others continued to dig there until 1933 without completing the job. Called by the natives Tello Mound, the site proved to be an early Sumerian city, the very Lagash of whose conquest Sargon of Akkad had boasted. It was indeed a royal city whose rulers bore the same title Sargon had adopted, except that it was in the Sumerian language. Now, this is what is interesting to me. I always say this. A lot of people take what the Mesopotamians said and say, and everybody in Mesopotamia, the cultures and different individuals, and sit here and will say that, that it was the Sumerians that said that. No, the Sumerian language had, from what I've read, and this is just what I've read personally so far, that the Sumerian writing system lasted up to about 1 AD, not in the original format, because the Sumerian writing system started off as a pictographic script, and later on it changed. You can actually see it because he proves he backs me up by when I say that right here. You can see where it says Sumerian, it says original turned archaic, right? You can see the cuneiform and all that. You can see the times that it changed. So it wasn't always the same. So, but it's just amazing that people believe that when the Akkadian says something, Zecharia Sitchin, also, basically said his own thing, right? And created a whole narrative behind that. So we're going to go to the next tab. Let's see. It says, whenever I'm asked about UFOs, what do I think about UFOs? Do I believe they exist? Do I believe the people who encountered them? I am ready with my own UFO story. It was about a young man who was hiking from his hometown to another place. As it got dark at the end of the day, he lay down to sleep in the field. Remember, I always talk about the sleep visions and all that other stuff. As it got dark at the end of the day, he lay down to sleep in the field. In the middle of the night, he was awakened not by noises, but by bright lights. Half sleep, half blinded by the bright light, he saw a UFO. It was hovering over the ground. A ladder or steps were coming down from an open hatch or doorway reaching to the ground. Some of the occupants of the UFO were going up and down his ladder. He could see their commander standing in the open door, silhouetted against the light inside, and became with awe and fear. The young man fainted. When he came to the UFO, when he came to, the UFO was gone, but the young man knew what he had seen. Here is what he realized. Indeed, he said to himself, the Lord is present in this place, and I knew it not. How did he know this man said that? Anyway, how awesome is this place? It must be the place of the gods, and this is their great way to heaven. Okay. Now, this is interesting to me because it goes on. It says, as it happens, the tale has been reported in a publication that I consider very, very reliable. It is called the Bible. Now, let me tell you, he's talking about Jacob's ladder. Okay. This is interesting to me because Jacob was actually meditating. It doesn't say in different versions say different things about how he encountered this UFO and so on and so forth. But this is what he says, and this is why I say dreamlike visions and all this other stuff. He says, and as some of you might have guessed, the story that I told you is the so-called Jacob's dream. So how is it a dream, but he was half awake and half asleep? That doesn't make sense to me. That literally goes against what he says. He literally says right here that half asleep, half blinded by the bright light, he saw a UFO. And then that's on the tab on page 60. You go 1, 2, 3 to the next paragraph, third paragraph after that. It says, as it happens, the tale has been reported in publication that I consider very, very reliable. And then he says, it is called the Bible, and some of us might have guessed the story that I told you is the so-called Jacob's dream. It's Jacob's dream for a reason, because he was sleeping. He had a dream about this. He had a vision about it. This is not, and I'll be going over this in the future, but you can literally go pick up the Bible and read it for yourself. It literally says he was in a dreamlike state. He was in a vision. That's what the words that depending on which version you use, King James, New International, Geneva version. I have an 1873 Bible that says vision. And if you remember from my past episodes, I pulled up the etymology of what the word vision meant, and it literally just means something of the imagination. That's what it means. Etymology wise, by the dictionary, vision meant something in the imagination. So he literally contradicts himself right there in the matter of just a couple of paragraphs. He says he was half wake, half sleep, right? But then he says Jacob's dream, right? And that doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't, right? It shouldn't make sense to anybody else either, because that goes against what you're trying to say. And that's why I say you have to actually comprehend what you're saying. If you're just reading it just to read it, just to find things about UFOs and all this other stuff, then you're going to sit here and be misguided and given misinformation. If you break down what they said and sit there and understand, boom, this is one of the paragraphs that I was saying that takes away from what he was trying to do, and this hurt him more than it helped him. Because when I read that, I was like, bro, you just said in your book a few paragraphs ago that he was half wake, half sleep. And then you come in three paragraphs later and say that it was Jacob's dream. So which one is it? Was he dreaming or was he up? And then how in the hell do you know exactly what he said? Nobody was there, right? And, and what cuneiform says that Jacob said those words? Because he has it in quotation marks. So it goes back. This is the second version in this book of what he calls the Nephilim and what Nephilim and Anunnaki mean. He says, but young Sitchin raised his hand, because he's talking about that same story, and asked the teacher, why do you say giants when the word Nephilim means in Hebrew those who came or descended to earth, presumably from the heavens? Question mark. Okay. I just showed you that Nephilim doesn't say any of those words right there. It has one meaning behind it, and it just means, or from the origin, it means fallen. That's it. Now, I've already explained what fallen means. Have you ever had that saying where you fell out with some people? Hey man, I fell out with that dude. I don't talk to them no more. I've fallen out with those people. I don't mess with them no more. Did you fall from heaven when that happened? Did they fall from heaven when that happened? No, it's just a basic way of saying that you no longer interact or have any kind of relationship with that person. So when I say or hear the word falling out with somebody, I just take that in the same consideration, right? It's basic. You don't have to make up things to try to gain attention, but that's what they do. Now this is another one, right? Hold on, let me see what page was that. That was page 61, right? Remember, I think the other one was what, page 8. So you have page 8, you have page 61. Then page 71, 10 pages after that. This is another one that he says. Man, it trips me out every time I read this stuff. It says the existence of Nibiru explains the source of amazing Sumerian knowledge. Okay. As if to preempt the questions, the Sumerians themselves repeatedly stated all that we know they said was taught to us by the Anunnaki. Like I said, the Sumerians never called them the Anunnaki. They called them the Anunna, Anunnna, and it's spelled multiple different ways from that. But it's basically the Sumerians called them the Anunna. The Akkadians are the ones that called them the Anunnaki. So that right there, he doesn't know. He literally says, what was it? It has taken 30 years of research of going back to the ancient sources. That's what he said on page 10 of this book. So if you took 30 years of going back to the original sources, where the hell did you get that the Sumerians called them the Anunnaki? They originally called them the Anunna. Like I said, the Akkadians called them the Anunnaki. And not just Zecharia Sitchin pushed this idea. Billy Carson pushes this same exact idea. So if Billy Carson is sitting here telling you that he can translate this stuff, where the hell is he getting these translations from? And that's what the bad thing about sitting here putting faith in the people like this and saying that they know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. Because like I said, if you go to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature and type in an Anunnaki, which I've shown plenty of times in the past, and throughout the Zecharia Sitchin's book that I've been doing for the last 2 weeks, you will see that you would not find nothing about the Anunnaki. It would not bring nothing on there, but you type in Anunna, it's going to bring it up for you. This is what it says. I'm going to continue because it's still on page 71. The name literally, and when he says the name literally meant, he's talking about the Anunnaki. The name literally meant those who from heaven to earth came. That's a different version, right? The exact meaning of the Hebrew term that the Bible used. No, it's not the exact term. Where in the exact term does it say that at? This is what I'm saying. And like I said, I talked to Billy Carson and I've read his books. He always says word for word. When somebody says, when I hear the words word for word, that means when I take one book and take another book or one source and another source, reading those sources are going to be identical because it means word for word. The Bible, the King James Version, is not the same word for word as the New Jerusalem Bible. It's not the same word for word by the Geneva Version. They're two different. It has different words used for it. People are picking words to sit there and share what they want people to believe. When you hear word for word, why aren't these people showing it? It's only because they want you to believe what they what they believe, and they want to make money off of it. I'm telling you, they want to make money off of it. This is going to be it's big money in these lies, and it's sad because it literally says, and I'm going to go on. It says, and the Sumerians in after text describe how those Anunnaki had in fact came to Earth, traveling in space from Nibiru, coming and going between their planet and ours every 3,600 years, when Nibiru, in his great elliptical orbit around the sun, passes Mars and Jupiter. There's no cuneiform tablet from the Sumerians that says any of that. Zero, zilch, none at all. Not one single cuneiform tablet. And if there is one, and Billy Carson ever says that he translated and he has the text and all this other stuff, tell me the cuneiform tablet identifier. I can search it on CDLI myself. I can go to the Cuneiform Digital Library of Initiative myself, and I can go look for it for myself. Just like anybody that's listening to this right now has that same ability, okay? Just because you want to believe in aliens and extraterrestrials and all this other stuff doesn't mean that you have to lie about it. scientifically, if it's true, if there's billions of planets out there, no doubt in my mind, I believe that there are something else out there, right? But I can tell you that Anunnaki, the Anuna, did not come from no planet Nibiru. Matter of fact, I have a book that I've already went over. It clearly states, and I've talked about it plenty of times, that the Anuna / Anunnaki came from the depths of the sea. Enki is a water god. He came from the seas to give humans, and this is in the Oxford Handbook of Sumerian text. Like, this is, I have the book, I've shared it plenty of times. Literally says they came from the depths of the seas, literally. And if you read Samuel Noah Kramer, Andrew George Smith, or any of those individuals, Falkenstein, a whole bunch of other individuals, you would definitely see that it came from the depths of the seas. In many cases, Zecharia says it, Zecharia Sitchin, I've went over it, says it in his own ways also, but he takes away that and says that he tried to reiterate that they came from planet Nibiru. There's no cuneiform text that says they came from a planet Nibiru, and it's crazy. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more tabs. So the next tab is, this is what he says. Let me pull it up. Oh, this one's sticking to the next page. Okay, he says, the Enuma Elish La Nabu Shamanu, when in the heights heaven had not been named. Shablitu Amatin Shama La Zakat, and below firm ground earth had not been called. This, if you go to the Enuma Elish, I actually have a copy of it on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. It's its own tab. You can read the 7 tablets of creation yourself, and you can read this. There's different translations of it, of course. But for the most part, guess what? The Enuma Elish is not Sumerian. That is actually Babylonian. Okay, the Enuma Elish is not Sumerian. Yes, the Sumerians had a type of Enuma Elish, but that actually comes from the Babylonians. Okay, the Enuma Elish, when I talk about the Enuma Elish and the Sumerians actually had tablets, they say that they found cuneiform tablets that talks about certain things that the Enuma Elish from the Babylonians actually expands on, because it was in its writing system and so on and so forth. But the cuneiform tablets actually are from the Babylonian time frame, literally. So when I said that, a lot of people from the Mesopotamians or from that time era, people like to say, the Sumerians are the ones that said all this stuff. No, they're not the ones that said all this stuff. Everybody had their own versions and everything like that. So just understand that the Enuma Elish is not Sumerian. It's written in the type of Sumerian cuneiform, but it's not Sumerian. Now, I will say this, because of my 1873 Bible, I have read in there that the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Chaldeans are one and the same. That's actually what it is. I'll be going over that 1873 Bible in the future. So be on the lookout for that. Wow, something just fell under my garage door. Wow. So let's see. Let's go to the next one. Earth with oceans, continents, and atmosphere was now ready for the formation of mountains, rivers, springs, valleys, attributing all creation to the Lord Marduk. Enuma Elish continued the narration. Now, yeah, Lord Marduk is, but they don't call him Lord Marduk. They just call him Marduk in the Enuma Elish. Maybe there are some translations that say that, but the one that I have, they actually just say, Marduk. But if you want to know about the creation of gods, you want to know about the Anunnaki, you want to know about the creation of earth and so on and so forth, we know that you can go to the Enuma Elish. This is the thing. Mountains and all this stuff are created all the time. Tectonic plates and stuff like that. I don't even have to get into that, because any scientist would know, or anybody that researches the Earth's crust would know that. So here's another tablet. I was asked the same question at the beginning of June 1997. This time, not so much from fans who mostly were unaware of happenings as from an increased alert media. Is it Nibiru? I was asked this in time into respect to a newly discovered celestial bearing the unsurprising name 1996 TL66. So this is just him saying in this chapter, chapter 5, it's an unpublished article written in 1997. It literally just talks about his idea of certain celestial objects out there, and it's only literally one page, one whole page, front and back. So like I said, this right here, it's just, if they find a planet with people on there or human like people like us, they're definitely going to say, oh, see, Zecharia Sitchin was right. Even if they find a planet that may not orbit our sun every 3,600 years, they're going to say, oh, see, Sitchin was right. There's no doubt in my mind. When I was a little kid, before I even read Sitchin's book or any books about life outside of Earth, driving home at night looking at the moon, I always question, hey, could there be people living on the moon? I know I'm not the only person that thought that. And when you can see with your naked eye with 5 different planets and so on and so forth, you can definitely see for yourself that that the fact is that you're going to wonder whether there's life outside of Earth. There's always going to be that wonder and that idea and that that basic trying to understand what is outside. Is there something other than us out there? So these questions right here, they're only asking him because he brought this whole thing up about the Anunnaki come from planet Nibiru and that he believes in this, that, and the third. So it's not facts. Okay, we don't know if there's life outside of Earth's atmosphere. We do know, well, it depends on what you consider life, because they definitely found bacteria outside of Earth's atmosphere and all this other stuff. So depending on what you consider, but we know right as of right now, we're not sure that is there humans like us outside of Earth's atmosphere. Here we go. This is where it gets really interesting, and this is why I said his niece. I pressed the button on my computer. His niece had did more harm publishing this, because let me go to this chapter. Let me go to the beginning of this chapter first, because this is on page 148 that I'm about to talk about right now, and this is what really made me start to question a lot about Sitchin and Billy Carson and stuff like that. Okay, this is chapter 6, God the Extraterrestrial. That's what it's called, and it's on page 148. All right, this is what it says. It says, how much closer can one get to the 36 years that it takes Nibiru to complete one orbit around the sun? Although there are no specific text dealing with or describing Anu's abode on Nibiru, some idea thereof can be gained indirectly from such texts as the Tale of Adapa, occasionally references in various texts, and even from the Assyrian depictions. He literally just admit that there's no specific text out there that says this stuff. You have to put what you see in pictures, and you have to read certain things, and then you have to say, okay, this could be what it is. But there's no specific text. He literally says this in his book. Look, it's amazing in chapter 6 that he says this, page 148. Okay, no specific text. So when I go around and say, hey, there's no specific text about this stuff, and people get mad at me, the first thing I ask him is, have you read the Anunnaki Chronicles by Zecharia, that was written by unpublished books by Zecharia Sitchin, that was published and edited by his niece Janet Sitchin? What did Janet Sitchin actually edit then? Right? What did she actually edit? That's my question, because it says edited. So, my point is that I sit here and say this all the time. Look, take a good look at this book. I'm telling you, please take a good look at this book. Get this book and read it for yourself. I'm not making anything up. I'm literally telling you the page numbers and where you can read this stuff from yourself. Page 148 of this book right here. This book here. It says, although there are no specific texts dealing with or describing Anu's abode on Nibiru, some idea thereof can be gained indirectly from such texts as the Tale of Adapa. This is why I say people who follow Billy Carson, people who follow Giorgio Tsoukalos, who believe the Anunnaki came from planet Nibiru and all this other stuff, Zecharia Sitchin literally tells everybody in one page 148, and I wonder why these are unpublished writings from him. He literally tells you there's no specific text. So if he's saying this, and I'm saying that he says this, you can't get mad at me from bringing out the facts to the table. Okay? If there's no specific text, then don't go around saying they came from planet Nibiru. That's just what you believe. That's not what the facts are. That's what you believe. And Billy Carson goes around says these are the facts. And the only reason why I harp on him now is because he's literally taking what Zecharia Sitchin says, and Billy Carson, he doesn't do his own due diligence in anything. He takes what other people say and he makes it famous. He talks loud enough for people to sit here and think that he dresses up in a nice suit and this, that, and the third. He sits here and talks about all the money that he has. And I'm telling you, it's crazy that, hey, I know what I'm talking about because people buy my ideas. Man, well, your ideas are wrong. Okay, I literally read these books and I'm literally going over them. This man tells me that there's no specific text in this stuff, then I'm going with that. That's it. Until you can prove it to me and you have the opportunity to do it because you're always online and you're always talking about your TV shows and all this other stuff, then bring it to the table. Let us see it for ourselves. Don't just tell us to go read something and have yourself plastered on the screen and thinking that you running things. Like, bro, this is serious. And it's serious because it takes away from people who actually do their due diligence and research. Okay. I've been a leader in combat zones. I know what it takes to be a leader. You don't want to be a leader telling people to follow what you say. You want to do the same exact thing that you're telling your soldiers or whatever your leader, your new leaders that you're trying to create in the military, what you're trying to do. Okay. A leader leads from the front, but he can also be in the back also and let somebody else lead. It's just a matter of how much respect that you have for people. And I can tell you, a lot of these people don't have respect for people in their research because when you ask them, they get offended and then be like, oh, you're questioning my knowledge. No, I ain't questioning your knowledge. You obviously know the basics of what you're trying to say. I'm questioning your narrative. That's what I'm questioning. I'm questioning the narrative. I'm questioning what you're trying to tell people to believe. That's what I'm questioning. Why do you say that they came from planet Nibiru when there's no cuneiform tablet that says that? And when you say, when you look all around the world, people talk about sky gods and this, that, and the third. Not every culture talks about sky gods. I'm literally in the UFO community on Twitter X, right? And I seen a post by somebody that says Native Americans talked about sky gods. Not all Native Americans talked about sky gods. Some of them talked about the ant people, and some of them talked about their gods coming from across the waters. Okay, they only pick the stuff that goes with their belief and they harp on it. But what about all the other people that don't talk about this stuff and talk about different things, right? So it's just they want to go. That's what I say. They want to make up their own narrative. This is the other thing. There's another tab. Where did Enki the Nakash obtain the X and Y chromosomes? And what about the source of the mtDNA? Okay, so look, I've already talked about this plenty of times. I'm not even going to harp on this one. There have been plenty of human-like species here on this planet at one time. There's different numbers for it. There's more than 5, definitely. I'm just throwing that number out there. There was more than 5. You had the Neanderthals, you had the Homo erectus, you had Homo sapiens, you had Denisovans, and so on and so forth. They all, in some way, kind of cross each other's timeline. Okay, I've explained it in the most simplest term. When you're breeding dogs, as long as a pit bull can have a baby or puppies with a Rottweiler. They're 2 different types of dogs, right? But their DNA is close enough to where they can have a mixed breed of dogs. It's no different than humans. You don't have to look for the XY chromosomes and all this other stuff. Zecharia Sitchin literally talks about the Homo erectus, right? You don't have to have all that stuff. We're a mixed breed of individuals. Some people have Denisovan in them. Some people have Neanderthals in them. They never talk about Homo erectus, but they know that, Homo erectus has been around for a long time. So that right there, I'm not even going to harp on, because just to keep it simple, stupid, it's not hard for a Neanderthal and a Denisovan to have a child together. There's actually peer-reviewed articles out there, which I'll go over in the future, about how they had different species of human-like species breeding with each other. Okay, this is another tablet. tab, and this is the last. There's one more tab after this. So, like I said, this wasn't going to be long at all. That a miracle happened among the last martyrs of Christianity to have been tortured and executed by the Romans was Catherine of Alexandria. On her execution, her body vanished. According to legend, angels had carried it to the highest peak in the peninsula of Sinai. 4 centuries later, the burial place was revealed to the monks in a dream. In a dream. They brought the body down and put it in a golden casket, which is placed in the church built by Justinian. Now listen, like I said, he says according to legend. Like I said, get this book right here. Literally. Get this book right here. I'm telling you, get this book and read it for yourself. This is page 205. He literally says, according to legend. So this is the thing. According to legend. Like, you hear me, right? According to legend, right? That means there's no writing. There's nothing that's actually absolute on it. You're going off a legend that was told by a traditional oral story. Guess what a myth is? A myth is basically a traditional oral story. Yes, if you pick up the definition right now, and I have a dictionary right here. I have the Merriam-Webster dictionary right here. I also have the etymology dictionary. If you actually look at, the words that they are using, legend, myth, so on and so forth, they all come from traditional oral stories that people passed along orally by their mouths. Later on in life, people added to and took away from that. And that's when it became more into being based on fiction rather than facts, because nobody knows what the actual facts are. It was translated word of mouth, basically. He say, she say, basically. Let's just keep it like that. Last tab, page 10. When God's not men roamed the new world. This is actually the first beginning, the first thing. It says in the 1990 book, The Lost Realms, when Sitchin discusses his findings in the Americas, this unpublished article further elaborates his thinking on this fascinating subject of early visitors to the New World. What was puzzling to the early Spanish conquistadors when they first set foot in the New World was how much the culture in South America resembled their own. The culture that they encountered was relatively developed, high culture, replete with complete systems of governance, the arts, and religion. The Spanish were even more surprised to realize that not only did the natives worship one god in a monotheistic fashion, but they were also familiar with the symbol of the cross. First of all, they did not worship one god. Okay, they had different gods. The Aztecs had different gods. The Mayans had different gods. Some people believe the Olmecs had different gods. I don't know where the hell he got, the idea that the Mesopotamians had worshipped different one god. They didn't have a monotheistic religion. Hold on, let me check something real quick, because I do want to have this. I just want to add something. Mesoamerican gods. How many were there? Because there was a lot, but I want to just see something, because this is what. Oh, how many? Let me see. Hold on. Because some people going to be lazy, and they're going to go to ChatGPT or Grok, and they're going to type in how many gods did the Mesoamericans have, right? I know that's what they're going to do, right? And I can tell you that the Olmec had, and this is according to ChatGPT. Let me bring it up, because I don't want people to lie or thinking I'm lying. I know this is what people are going to do. I know for a fact that people are going to go to ChatGPT and ask it. And that's why I'm going to go to the same ChatGPT that people are going to use, or Grok. And you can see the first known Mesoamerican gods: the Olmec, the bird monster, maize god, jaguar, water god. Only about 5 or 6 core gods are known, but they influenced all later civilizations. That's why I said some people say that Olmecs had different gods. They just don't know how many they had. Look at all these different gods from Maya. Okay, for the Mayans. Okay. The Mayan pantheon had over 150 deities. It can't be a goddamn a monotheistic religion. Just can't. Not with 150 deities. Okay, the Aztecs, 200 plus gods. Okay, this is just basics right here. Everybody that's read the Popol Vuh or any of the books from that side of the world knows that you're going to read these gods in there, right? Or not just the Popol Vuh, but just any Mesoamerican text you're going to read these right here, right? Look, Toltecs had 60 to 80 gods, literally 60 to 80 gods. In total, across Mesoamerican civilization, scholars estimate there were over 300 distinct gods with recurring archetypes. Okay. I know people are going to go to ChatGPT and do that. That's why I took it upon myself to go ahead and do it for you. I'm not going to lie about this stuff. So when he said monotheistic religion, I'm just like, what is he talking about? You literally said at the beginning of these books, on these publishings, that you spent 30 years going to the original sources. Come on, man. And this is the stuff that people believe because of the simple fact that these people are known, they're rich, they're on TV, they're on YouTube channels, they're on Joe Rogan, they're on here, they're there, and this, that, and the third. But come on, man. If I'm studying Mesoamerican history by yourself, I know for a fact that they had more than one god. Okay. If I'm studying Mesopotamia, matter of fact, the Romans, hold up. Because he said Romans, right? How many gods did the Romans have? Let's see what ChatGPT said. Because, like I said, I'm not going to sit up here and say anything that can't be researched. This is just basic stuff too. People are going to go and look this up themselves. They're going to go to ChatGPT, and they're going to definitely go there and say, "Hey, hey Grok, hey ChatGPT, how many guys did the Romans have? Let me see what he says. He says, did he say Romans? I just want to make sure. He says, okay, I'm sorry, the Spanish conquistadors. Okay, I'm sorry, not the Romans, Spanish conquistadors. I just want to make sure I read that correctly. But yeah, even them, depending on where you lived in that area, they definitely had different gods. Here, hold on, let me see something. Okay, yeah. So let me go. Let's see. Okay, yeah, the cross. That's what I wanted to read. The symbol of the cross. Now, anybody that's read anything from Jeff Benner, he gives a good explanation of what the cross meant. Just X marks the spot. Or if you go to the ancient Hebrew, TAU or TAV is the way it's spelled. It just basically meant that this was a location for something important or something like finding treasure. Remember the old school cartoons when they, pirates would come on the cartoons and they'll mark an X, they'll look at a map and the X will be there, right? Two cross sticks or something like that. X marks the spot. That was the treasure. That was, the idea of the information. So like I said, if you read the text for yourself, if you go and do your due diligence and all that other stuff, you will see for yourself that Zecharia Sitchin created a narrative to get people to believe what he believed. And now that he's no longer with us, nobody can question him. Dr. Michael S. Heiser did ask him for a debate one time, and Zecharia Sitchin didn't do that. Billy Carson is the same exact way. I mean, Wesley Huff already swept his ass in the debate. He swept his ass so bad, he got onto a 2-hour rant about how rich he is and how he got billionaires in his phones and how we are poor and this, that, and the third. I mean, he talked so down on so many people. And if you remember, if any of you looked at the comments on that, a lot of people were let down from him. And, like I said, Hitler had supporters, right? Mussolini had supporters, right? You can fool people to support anything that you want to say. I mean, people are just going to do that, right? But that doesn't mean that you're right, and that doesn't mean you're the person for the job. I can tell you right now, somebody who's read Billy Carson's books, he doesn't give credit to his sources. He doesn't give credit to the people who did the hard work before him. He takes their hard work, he manipulates it, creates a narrative, and he rips people off on their knowledge and their ability to gain the information. One thing that you will find different than me and a lot of other people is that I'm going to give you the sources. I know Kalani Starr, one guy that I met just the past week, uh, we've been talking for years, and we go over our sources for years, and I finally got to meet him. He's a brother that has information like no other. I mean, he's on it just like I am. We want to know everything. We want to cross-reference our information. And there's a lot of people like Billy Carson that doesn't like those like us type of people because we challenge their narrative. And like I said, I'm not questioning his knowledge. Obviously, he knows where to get some of this information from. What I'm questioning is why are you creating a whole narrative that's not even needed to be there. You don't have to sit here and have a deep knowledge to understanding to know that there may be life outside of planet Earth. I knew that when I was a little kid. I mean, was I a prophet then? Was I out there giving the facts then? No, I just know for a fact that there's life outside of planet Earth. Now, what that life looked like is a whole different idea. And when I can create theories just like that, but I'm not going to create a theory that somebody has already created before me, because I'm not the first person to think that, let alone I'm going to be the last person. But I do highly recommend reading these books. And the reason why is because you can't counter somebody's information without reading it and doing your due diligence first. You can't counter somebody's information without going in there and sitting down and talking to that individual or listening to that individual for that matter. I can tell you right now, I don't follow Billy Carson stuff. I read that book because somebody actually, when I was at Cosmic Summit, I have been harping on Billy Carson and his incorrect information for a while. And people have, when I was at Cosmic Summit, a lot of people say, hey, yo, why don't you go buy Billy Carson's book? I said, no, I'm not going to buy his book. The dude makes up a lot of stuff. And somebody actually went to buy me his book for me, gave me money to go buy the book for because they like my series, what I've learned for reading these books. So they want me to go over his books too, which I am going to do after I finish Sitchin. And I think there's another book after this, not Sitchin's, that's before, because like I said, I have a list on my website, rebirthoftheword.com, that I actually is going through. I think I'm on like 60 or something books. I have thousands of books, so this is going to happen for a while. I'm not going to say thousands. I have about 1,000 books, give or take. No, I'd say about 1,000 books, maybe a little bit more, that actually talking. And I go and I don't have my Kindle with me. It's in another room. But not only do I have hard copies like this, I do have a Kindle that I have because it would cost way too much to buy every book, and not every book is in publication. So I have to go to archive.gov and all these other places that let you download books for free. But like I always say, do your due diligence. If you do like my stuff, share it. Share my YouTube channel, help me get the message out there. I will challenge anybody and have a discussion and debate with anybody. Matter of fact, about 1 p.m., I'm not sure if it's going to be recorded or not, or if it's going to be live, but I have a discussion with somebody because they want to help promote my book. And I'm appreciative of that. So, like I said, I know a lot of people have hit me up in the DMs and said, hey, why aren't you on the old shows that you were with the individuals? I've said it before, I don't support racism of any kind, and anybody that does a show or have any interaction with somebody that supports that, I can't do any more videos with them. It's just principle, what I'm saying? Like I'm raising Black children, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to allow that to happen and let somebody take away that stuff. Racism is bad. I mean, I'm 42 years old and I still get called the N-word, as crazy as it can be, right? And people still threaten my life because of my skin color. I have recordings of that. So it's just crazy that stuff happens. But like I said, all I try to do is just share what I've known. And instead of supporting others so much as I've done in the past, because I've been burnt by a lot of people that I supported, a lot of people actually. I'm keeping that to a minimum now. I'm focusing on my stuff. So tomorrow I'm going over another book. I believe I probably go over Genesis Revisited, probably be about 10, 11 o'clock. If you want me to do it at a different time, let me know. Send me DMs. Let me know what's the best time for you. Look, check it. If you missed this live, I'm always going to have it on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and rewatch the video and see what I said. And you can always message me. Always message me if there's a question, if there's something that you want to know more about, a book that I feel like that's more, that will help on your knowledge and stuff like that. I have no problem at all answering your questions. I'm not like Billy Carson or her like Zecharia Sitchin was. I'm not going to ignore you. I know they have hundreds and thousands of followers and you can't get to everybody, but I'm definitely going to give an opportunity to. If I read it, I'll definitely write it down and I would definitely talk about it later in my live streams. That's what I actually do. Like I said, a lot of people have already asked me why I'm not on a lot of these other shows. It's because I just can't support that kind of crap that goes on in it. You know what I mean? So whenever you hear me talk about certain things that might be off topic for a second, it's because I have written down stuff of what people will ask questions about. Just like Lil Vibe said, respect, can't support the racist stuff. I'm always going to do what I do. He said he's the artist that gave me permission to use his music in my beginning of my introduction. I've actually been working on that a while, trying to figure out how to do it and stuff like that. So if you love music and you love hip hop, you love every type of music, Lil Vibe is definitely the person you want to check out on Spotify. He has albums on there. He's constantly writing and doing stuff. He actually sends me a lot of the sources that he has to help me better understand the source that I have. So we're always exchanging, sources and stuff like that. So check out Lil Vibe. That's why you see that banner on the bottom. Visit Lil Vibe on Spotify because I highly recommend him and his music. I listen to his music all the time. I'm not gonna say every single day, but I do listen to his music a lot to the point where, I can damn near rap along with the lyrics perfectly. So, like I always say, knowledge is power. And I appreciate everybody coming out here, share this stuff. And, we're going to get back into it tomorrow around 10 or 11. Y'all take